That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about We're All Going to the World's Fair, the directorial debut of Jane Schoenbrun, which premiered at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival in the next section. It is being released courtesy of Utopia in Chicago and New York on April 15th, and it will expand theatrically the week after, April 22nd, 2022. Notably, and I would have liked to attend this series at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, where the film is playing in New York. Schoenbrun has also put together a series of films about fascination and fear of living life online.
Oh,
so
interesting.
films like The Matrix and Hackers and several other items of interest.
Oh, okay. Well, directorial debut.
Mm-hmm. Produced by David Lowery, which is notable.
Like Lowry Seasoning Salt?
Yeah, who directed The Green Knight recently.
Oh. The basic story is, what is the main character's name?
The main character's name, I'm forgetting.
What's the main character's name?
Casey.
Casey. That was rough. Okay. All right. So the basic story is there is a young lady named Casey. She appears to be like 15, maybe. Living in like, I couldn't quite ascertain where she is living. You noticed a bunch of cars had New York license plates, maybe.
Yes.
She's somewhere where like the winter is pretty rough.
And she lives in an attic with her father, who we never see.
The film opens with her doing the World's Fair challenge, which basically is like invoking, it's like the ring or something. Like all these people online are doing this challenge. They cut their fingers, smear some blood on the computer screen, and then something's supposed to happen. So we see her initiate this challenge, and then the bulk of the film is her sort of, through the power of suggestion, feeling like something's happening to her. So we get lots of videos of her acting strange. We also get a lot of videos of other young people who have done the World's Fair challenge, and they're acting weird as well. That's basically it, except that a big plot point is there is a man, like a whole-ass adult man, like in his 50s, with the initials JLB, who's communicating with her using like a disguised voice, like a creepy voice, and then he's using Skype to chat with her. No video, just an avatar that looks like if the Babadook took his hat off. And this person seems very concerned about her. Like, what did you do? How are you feeling? We also see this person corresponding with her, like in what looks like a child's room.
Yes. Yeah.
The end. There's no resolve. Like, he never meets her. He doesn't harm her. Nothing ever happens to her. There's no supernatural component. It just ends.
Well, they have a moment where he tells her that he's concerned about her enough to, he'd been considering calling the police. She gets upset. They stop talking. And then there's omniscient narration of this character talking about how a year had passed and then he spoke to her again.
Oh,
and
sure.
whether or not that's true, he relates how she had been living in an assisted care facility or something. And
right. So very sort of straightforward and non-productive.
A non-productive film about a creepypasta.
Creepypasta, what did I call it?
Cooper Duper or something.
Cooper Spooper or creepypasta, which is like urban legend type stuff that usually involves the internet.
Yes.
Is what I'm told the kids say.
Like The Slender Man is an example of that.
Okay. Where to begin? You read me the filmmaker's like statement regarding the film.
The director's statement, yeah.
Because this movie was not for me. And we'll talk about all the reasons why. But after you read the filmmaker's statement about what inspired them to make it, I thought that statement was, it added a lot of clarity, but I thought I wish that person would have made that story and not this movie.
I think there are a lot of interesting ideas in the film. This is the second time I've seen it. The first time I saw it in conjunction with Out of Sundance 2021, and where it received a lot of rave reviews, and I was very cool on it, and I thought I'll revisit it later, which we did. And I still really didn't like it, but there are interesting ideas in there, and the conversations we've had about it were more interesting than the film.
We had very long conversation about the topics in the film, but the actual movie, it was hard to sit through. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm sorry. And I think the biggest issue is the lead actor. What's that person's name?
It's her debut, Anna Cobb. As Casey. Yes, it's hard to tell if this was scripted or improvised. Either way, it was tedious in a lot of those scenes. There are creepy moments. Michael J. Rogers plays the man that she's corresponding with, and the creepiest part of this is that avatar.
Literally the only... Well, there are two scary parts. One is...
Scary.
Well, creepy is his avatar, which is basically the Babadook. And then... We watch a lot of video footage of just her doing random things, including sleeping, which is not very engaging. But there is a point where he's talking about, like, he watched her sleep all night long, and there's a moment where she kind of moves, and she gets this, like, creepy look on her face, like she's staring off into the distance, smiling. I thought that was creepy, but that's it.
She's posting 9-10 hour videos of her sleeping, and I don't know if he's her only subscriber. But be that as it may, again, there are interesting elements. In Jane Schoenbrun's director's statement, talking about life as a 13-year-old when they were corresponding in AOL chat rooms with a person that had initials like this, and I think the story they related was something about this man had said his boyfriend was a vampire and was changing him. So the ideas about dysphoria, especially for an adolescent, are interesting. But how the internet plays out in this contemporary film, it made me feel like this film felt very Gen X to me. It felt very late 90s, based on how teenagers and people correspond online now.
I think the issue for me is like hearing the filmmaker's statement, and then this person, I'm assuming being probably like in their late 30s, if not early 40s. I don't know what this person looks like or whatever, but I have a very similar, and so you do as well, of like the late 90s, being on, dial-up internet in these AOL chat rooms, creating entire stories with people and making connections with people we can't see, we can't verify.
And that was normal.
And so reading that statement, I really connected, and I thought that would be so interesting. But the fact that it's set in modern time and the technology would allow us to connect with people and verify, there's just a lot about it that feels like it's not connecting with whatever the filmmaker experienced when they were a teenager.
Correct.
But could I go through my notes? The opening of the film I thought was interesting because, of course, it's like when she invokes this World's Fair challenge, you're like, well, what the fuck's about to happen? Then we see her starting to feel weird, and she starts searching online for like other people who have done it and what they're feeling. And then we see a couple of videos. One is a guy saying like, I can't feel my body. And it's this like, guy, like a good looking guy with a nice body on a treadmill, and he's punching himself and he can't feel it apparently. Then we move to a video called I'm Turning into Plastic, which just looks like Jeffree Star covered in like glycerin. But I thought that was a really interesting start.
It's an interesting start because it also, how the title moves us forward through this, like we're all going to the World's Fair. We're all participating in this kind of toxic, deadly game that is social media that is going to obliterate our humanity, if you will. That is going to cause dysphoria about how we feel, the presentation of ourselves online versus how we are in reality.
And this is a conversation we could have for 3 hours.
Sure.
So I think it's very interesting to talk about. But if we're talking about this film, I feel like the first 10 minutes had my attention. But then this poor Casey lady, whatever her name is, because then we get to her just talking. And then like we're listening to her talk, and then she's out in the forest making a video talking. It's just really cringy.
There's a soundbite from Mystery Science Theater 3000 that I say a lot, that applies to how I felt about her, which was, "Good night, creepy vacuous girl."
It does feel like she's maybe like the director said, okay, in this scene you're going to make a video about blah, and then she's just doing it. But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of preparation. Maybe she's just rambling on but trying to act spontaneous. I don't know.
A lot of these scenes that felt kind of endless and they were going around in circles, I felt like I was being forced to watch a YouTube video I would have turned off long ago.
Well, my next note that I had several times throughout is like, when is something going to happen? Nothing is happening. There is a video she puts on that's like it almost feels like an ASMR video.
It is.
Oh, it is?
That is a notable ASMR person I read as well.
Well, That was a highlight because I actually thought, oh, that was putting me to sleep because this movie's not doing anything. And then I think it's kind of funny because like the movie's doing nothing. And then you have this person doing an ASMR video about going to sleep. And I was sitting on the couch like trying very hard not to.
Well, the only thing that really happens is this person, because also in Jane's statement about this being having to do with Poe's Law, and Casey has, I think that's a stuffed lemur, that is named Poe, that is referenced several times. An internet adage, if you will, that says you don't know if somebody's being authentic or if they're trolling you. Which, this is the dance that Casey and this man are doing, and then she gets angry when he's doing for her what her father should have done, which is basically showing concern and showing that I see you and this behavior is troubling, and that kind of is a reality check for her. The film gave me this sense of loneliness because I grew up in the Midwest in Minnesota, and I'm very familiar with winters there. And the scenes of her outside I thought were effective. And there's shots of, it opens with this shot of like a Best Buy strip mall on a highway, nothing going on. It's just a dead zone. And I liked that vibe in the film most.
There is a lot to the bones of the story that I think could have made for a very interesting piece. But again, I think it's the lead. It's just... it wasn't up to the task. There's a scene where a lot of videos of other people who have done this challenge and then they're doing weird things. One is this boy who looks like he has some sort of like plaque built up on his skin, but he's like pale skin with this black plaque, and then he's digging in the crevice of his elbow and pulls out like a string of admission tickets.
There are interesting moments, but it doesn't coalesce into an enjoyable or even ultimately creepy experience that I think the core of it is speaking to.
My next note is we're just watching dumb kids do dumb things. I thought this movie felt like a boring amalgamation of a lot of other films we've seen, like that movie Searching, Paranormal Activity,
which is referenced several times.
Host,
yeah.
that shorter film I really liked. So yeah, so much of it just feels very familiar.
It feels like a COVID film. Really, a film, cinema in isolation and about isolation.
You said something shady that made me laugh. You said the girl looked like Eddie Furlong from Terminator 2.
I said I hadn't. I said I don't know if I'd been as frustrated with a teenage character.
Oh, not that she looked like him.
Well, the hair, that dance scene.
There is a scene, I can't believe it. Oh no, I did write it down because, okay, so she is, what was her name again? Casey. We're watching a lot of videos of her just doing random things, which we're supposed to maybe, I feel like the impression we were supposed to get is that it's ambiguous on whether or not there is some sort of supernatural element, but I don't think it's effective.
No.
It just seems like a stupid thing kids are doing. So then one of the things she does is sing a song that I'm assuming is something she made up, but it's called Love in Winter. Mm-hmm. And I actually really liked the music, like the background track.
I think that's because the Alex G provided the soundtrack. Which
Alex G did a good job.
A highlight.
Because I did like that song, and I like the lyrics. Her performing it is terrible, but then like the vocals, but then also the performance is pretty cringy because it just feels like someone trying to do something, which I guess you could argue is like, well, that's what people who are on social media are doing, is like trying to be something, but it doesn't feel, it should feel more cringy in like a desperate way, but it just feels like bad acting.
I think the problem for me is there's no hook, there's no way to navigate, there's no way for me to kind of feel invested in either of these characters to a degree. Same with Michael J. Rogers, who we just saw recently in that terrible Neil Blomkamp film Demonic. Orienting us into his world and why he's doing this, and did he lose a child?
Yes.
Is that why he's in there trying to kind of reach out to her and have
I was 100% sure that's what was happening, is that he had lost a child to this challenge and he's reaching out to her to maybe save a child. But that's never established. So I felt very poorly oriented as to what is happening, why it's important for this man to reach out to her.
And, I think that several sources have classified this as an example of trans horror, because of the subtext of dysphoria in an online digital world, and there's a reference to the Matrix in the film, which is widely regarded as a trans allegory itself, about him needing to rewatch it, and those are all interesting ideas, but I don't know that this feels specifically speaking to gender dysphoria.
I didn't feel that until you read the director's statement, and then I thought, well, I could see how you could pull.
Because I think it's larger than that. It goes
Larger than
beyond
that.
gender as a human experience. But
My final note is there is another video of Casey being weird where she's like reading like her audience's tarot cards, and I have had my cards read, and from what I recall, they only drop a few cards. This lady drops like all the cards, and then she's saying what it is. And again, it just felt like poorly prepared. Like maybe she was just told, okay, the cue is you're going to read your audience's tarot cards. And then she just starts like dropping them and saying the names, and she kind of flubs one of them. And
again, I guess kudos to the the authenticity of how that felt, because if I had searched for that online and saw her, I would have turned it off.
I think that would be my overall for why I would give this a low score. Is like if these were videos on YouTube as I'm scrolling through, as I'm prone to do, I would X out of them. Mm-hmm. So that's how I feel about this movie. Like it just looks like a bunch of dumb videos of people just trying to get attention, but it's not even interesting stuff. So
Right.
For that reason, I would give this film like 1.5 out of 5.
Damn. I think that this is an interesting filmmaker with something to say, and I would be curious to see what they do next.
I think what would be more interesting is take your 90 minutes, read the statement, get with friends, and talk about how social media is affecting us and our self-worth and our self-image and
how we all are really going to
and
the
how we
World's
don't
Fair.
and how we don't hold each other accountable for like these fake personas we put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's gonna check me because I'm always the same. But like there are a lot of people out there who
Well, I think that's
are like different people,
that's
and
what
it's
our
awkward and no one addresses
well,
it.
that's what our conversation about how we put on different masks or faces or personas depending on whatever social scenario it is required of us, and underneath that, the baseline of how we all the cultural mores of how we kind of the unsaid things about how we kind of agree to act in an appropriate manner,
Right.
as we navigate the world, and where our authentic bits are kind of wrapped up in those roles, because that's where there's truth. There are nuggets of truth in us in all of those scenarios.
You know, what would you give it?
2.
Anything else?
No.
Listen to our podcast. Bye.